segment 4, the conservative failure. Never enough. This is the saddest line in Never Enough. Quote, adjusted for inflation, per capita federal welfare state spending, I can hardly believe this, was 77% higher in 2007 than it was when President Reagan took office, close quote. How can that be? The Reagan Revolution takes place. Some years later, you get the Gingrich Revolution taking place. George H.W. Bush succeeds Ronald Reagan. George W. Bush is in office for 8 years. A lot of conservatives have a lot of prominence in American politics throughout this period, and yet per capita federal welfare state spending goes up 77%.
That's right. I mean, to put it another way, this is a period in American history where Republicans were always in control of something, unlike the New Deal, unlike the first 2 years of the Obama administration, either the White House or they had a base on Capitol Hill. Well, a lot of these programs are on autopilot. Social Security. Congress didn't need to do anything for those to grow. Medicare, just sort of leave them be. And other programs, I was on a panel recently with Robert Rector of the Heritage Foundation, who was looking at, he has a careful report of 71 means-tested federal welfare programs.
Means-tested means you only get the benefit if you're poor.
That's
basically.
right.
If you need it.
That's right.
By somebody's standard, you need it.
So these are not the middle-class entitlements.
As opposed to Social Security, which you get, millionaires get Social Security.
Warren Buffett gets a Social Security check. That's right. And he said, you know, he had a chart showing the growth of these. And it's just shoots up like this. There's this brief plateau that looked like about 45 minutes when Reagan is first in office, and then it takes right off again. So even there's a huge dynamic at work here, and I think conservatives in 1980 and again in 1994 really underestimated how formidable this was going to be to stop a reverse.
Okay, never enough again. The growth of the welfare state is the result of two trends: economic growth and the political willingness to devote an increasing portion of the economic output to social welfare programs. You've made this point earlier.
Yeah.
During the 2 decades following Reagan's 1980 election, economic growth accounted for almost all the increase in welfare state spending. The portion of GDP devoted to federal welfare outlays barely budged, close quote. So, we can at least say that Ronald Reagan capped the political willingness to devote more and more of the pie to welfare spending. Yeah. As the pie got bigger, fine, welfare spending got bigger, but he at least limited that. That's an achievement.
That's an achievement. On this question of economic growth, which both parties are for, and conservatives think they do better than liberals, to change the metaphor a bit from slices of pies, the conservative dilemma is that you're on an escalator, and it's going up, and you're trying to walk down. The economy is getting bigger, even if you do these exertions to constrain the relative size of the welfare state. It's getting bigger just by virtue of economic expansion.
Mm. What happened during Newt Gingrich, and then what happened under George W. Bush?
Yeah.
When I say during Newt Gingrich, Newt Gingrich is Speaker from actually takes office in 95, is Speaker for
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
So the second half of the 90s.
Right. The president under whom welfare state spending grew most slowly was Ronald Reagan. Second is Bill Clinton. So Gingrich's efforts were not in vain here. This clearly has something to do with that. But there were also...
Gridlock works.
Gridlock helped. There were also some demographic factors slowing down the growth of the welfare state in the 1990s. The people signing up for Social Security and Medicare when Bill Clinton was president that was the age cohort born during the Great Depression, a very small group of Americans. So just the demographic bulge was negligible during those years. So
conservatives got demographically lucky for a while.
Yeah. Now, our luck has run out, of course.
And George W. Bush is president. Tom DeLay is the moving force among Republicans in the House of Representatives. Yeah. Speaker Dennis Hastert, a Republican. What happens then?
Yes, well, I think Republicans were burned so badly by the government shutdown in late 1995 and early 1996 that they never wanted to get near that again. So you had probably the most demoralizing thing conservatives have ever heard from a Republican politician was when Tom DeLay towards, I think this was about midway through Bush's presidency, said, you know, there's really not much left to cut in the federal budget. The reason we're not cutting back more is that, you know, we've been at it a while and all of the fat's pretty much excised.
So conservatives, the welfare state has been with us for 7.5 decades. Conservatives have been against it with varying degrees of intensity for 7.5 decades. They have succeeded by some measures in retarding the growth of the welfare state, but never, not once, not for a single year, in shrinking it. Quote, liberal victories advance liberalism. Conservative victories postpone liberalism. Why?
Well, my esoteric explanation for this phenomenon is that people like getting things. And the party that presents itself as the party of giving things to people has a significant built-in advantage.
So the electorate has been corrupted. The Republic of Virtue. Washington talks about the importance of virtue among the citizenry. Yeah. All the founding fathers did. And now Americans are on the take.
That's maybe not the... not words I would necessarily choose, but also not ones I could disagree with. I think that you know, you're talking about sort of the marketing of the New Deal and the Social Security, talking about the efforts to reassure people that the money they would be getting was their money they had put in. This was not only to serve the purpose of building an appetite for ever larger Social Security payments and benefits, but it was also to reassure people on just exactly that point. If you're getting a Social Security check, no, you're not on the dole. You're not a loafer. You're not taking advantage of your fellow citizens. This is your money that you're getting back. So there were great exertions to reassure people at that point in American history when they were still very dubious about the propriety of the welfare state.
To reassure them by misleading them.
That this was a legitimate undertaking, yes. All right.